We always begin with an abundant praise and gratitude because we were blessed with life and we've been favored with so many countless favors and blessings. And we here, people living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, are living a life and a comfort level that is so much better and so much easier than the vast majority of all of mankind. So we are in debt to our beloved Creator. We realize that we need His help, we need His guidance. And so we seek His guidance and help. And when we come up short because we are human and we are flawed, and we recognize this, we seek His forgiveness. And out of all of the realities that we have to be concerned about is the influence of shaitan, the evil that comes from within our surroundings and within our own selves that has imprinted itself upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity, nothing worthy of worship except for God alone. And we bear witness that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, was His final messenger and servant sent to mankind to complete the Abrahamic covenant. Right now, we live in a world that pretty much entertainment dominates a large part of people's lives. And a lot of Muslims either get completely sucked up into that, and so many hours a day, they're just entertaining themselves. And many times people are not concerned about how they choose to entertain themselves. And so you find that some people are conditioning themselves by putting in their eyes and their ears things that are immoral or unethical or not good for spiritual growth and development. Today I want to talk about a very interesting part of the entertainment world that is a very good discussion for a Friday khutbah, inshallah. And that is the huge, epic sci-fi series of Star Wars. It's been going on since 1977. They've just made the 7th installment, and they said within 1 week it has blown away all of the records, gathering like $1 billion. So many of the families are telling me, Imam, is it halal to see this? You know, my kids want to see this. Is this level? Is this a waste of time? What is this, right? And so I'm put here to try to bring some spiritual guidance. Now for me, as I mentioned before, I always go to Kids in Mind. It's an app. You should all have it. Kids in Mind. What this is, it's an app where some people with some sort of morals and spirituality have watched any movie that comes out, and then they put a scale of 1 to 10. Red being the bad and ugly, green being the safe and moral, right? So they gauge profanity, sexuality, violence and aggression, and then they give you the themes and the subject matter and the topics so that you can know. I use this for myself because in the modern day we live in, some people are teaching that once you become an adult, now it's perfectly okay to entertain yourself with immoral concepts, right? And that's being brainwashed into us. We should never accept immorality as our standard of being educated at any time, right? Because we're Abdullah, we're Ibadullah, we're the servants of God. So, the movie Star Wars, I don't have to go look it up because I've known all about it throughout my whole life. It's part of the American cultural framework, right? And so to give you a little background so that you can understand, you will see that this iconic series of sci-fi has huge, amazing overlaps and parallels with the Islamic philosophy and theology of spiritual growth and development. Some people might be saying, well, that sounds ridiculous. This is some sort of fictional story, right? But believe it or not, there are reports that the producer a long time ago, George Lucas, actually went and taped and stayed in Tunisia and learned from some people around there. And he even went to the people of California with some Muslims there, talking to them. And it is said that he learned from different religious concepts from across different traditions in his path. So this premise is about the battle between good and evil. It's all about the battle between good and evil. And that's characterized by, there's this force, and there is a light side of the force, and there's a dark side of the force. And the force itself is depicted as this interconnected reality between everything in existence that has control and power over all of it, right? So this is the premise of the movie. And so humans can use that force in the enlightened light way, the positive way, and that is characterized by a connection to the oneness of all creation and that which controls it and is the force behind it. The light side and those who follow it in the movie of Star Wars and its concept is characterized by compassion, morality, self-control, and non-material desires. Meaning desires that will be self-sacrificing for something greater than physical or desirable gain of power and wealth. Right? They're against all of that. So amongst the people who are on the light and in the good side are these people that are chosen and they are trained called Jedis. And these people called Jedis are people who have a very special connection with the Force, and amazing, miraculous events come from their relationship with the Force. And they are supposed to be those to protect the world from the darkness and the oppression and injustice of the darkness. The dark side of the Force is characterized by anger, hate, and worldly desire. And it is said that this leads to injustice and oppression in the movie. So let's begin our understanding of things. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-dhulmu dhulumat." He said that oppression and injustice are the darknesses. That's the Prophet ﷺ. And we know in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is called Al-Jabbar. God is known as Al-Jabbar, which literally means the irresistible, compelling force that is in control of everything in the universe. For this reason we say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no ability and no force, literally, except with Allah. Right? And then we say, وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. The Quran time and time again says, many people mistranslate this verse or translate it a little bit off. It means, and He is over everything that exists, capable and in control, is what that verse means. Right? And so that's the same idea as the concept of the force. And we say, tawakkaltu ala Allah. What does that mean? I depend and rely and put my trust in Allah, and I don't think anybody else can help me besides Him. Right? And that is the idea that the light side of the force is that if you stick with the light of the force and the reality behind everything, you will be protected and nothing can cause harm to you. We have this concept that I once read in a book by Al-Mawdudi called Towards Understanding Islam. And it's very much along this line. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. And all things in the royal we, I have created all of things with a certain measurement and a certain control over them. Right? What does this mean? In our theology and our philosophy, that every atom in the universe is governed by the designer of the atom. And His being Al-Qayyum means He's in control of this whole universe. And He is the one that causes this to be a solid object and this to be gas and hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and so forth. Right? And so everything is functioning and existing, and its systematic functionality is based upon God and His influence upon it, which is mimicking and mirroring the concept of the force. Now, the Quran teaches us that God is with everyone. But He teaches us in the Holy Quran that He is especially with those people who are connected to the force of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His control over all existence. It says, وَاللَّهُ مَعَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Right? إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. He is with those who are God. مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. He is with the patient who are relying in God, and all of those people are the ones who are deeply connected to Him. They have a special connection with Him. And so in the Quran it says, وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. And He is with you wherever you go, in a way that suits His perfection and majesty. And it's very well known for a good Muslim to say, Allah ma'ak, right? May God be with you. And that's just like they're saying, may the force be with you. Right? This is a very similar concept that we have in our religion. And so in this reality of God's ever-presence, the angel said in Surah Ghafir, رَبَّنَا وَسِعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ رَحْمَةً وَعِلْمًا. Our Lord, You have encompassed and surrounded everything by mercy and knowledge. What does it mean by knowledge? It means the same word for knowledge is the same word for science in Islam. Ulum, right? From ilm. Knowledge and science is the same word in Islam. And so what that means is the one who caused everything to be the way that it is, the way it is because the Maker made it that way, and He can manipulate it any way that He likes. And so we see that there are people who within our history were chosen and blessed. They're not called Jedis, they're called prophets. And these prophets had a very special connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is indeed the irresistible, compelling force behind everything. So events happen where some people, all of us would be hopeless, right? But these prophets, so for example, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam is there with Abu Bakr. Now Abu Bakr is one of the greatest, most pious people. And they're in the cave. And there is a price put on the head of the Prophet ﷺ, dead or alive, right? And so then they hear these pagan polytheists walking around and talking above them, and they are in an opening of a small cave right underneath them. So Abu Bakr got scared. He is concerned. He feels like danger is imminent. He's pushing the Prophet ﷺ, what do we do? And the Prophet ﷺ said, "La tahzan, inna Allah ma'ana." Don't be worried in the least bit, young Padawan, right? Because Allah is with us. I have absolute certainty that I was sent with a mission and I have a role to play, and that God will support me in that mission. So there will be nothing, no matter what, how close they get, could they cause any harm to us. And that's where you get the miraculous stories of this elaborate spider web, and the idea came to their mind, well, there could be nobody in there, even though what they've been traveling around looking for some time in the desert looking for is right in front of them. But because of that reliance in that which is at all times capable of changing any circumstances with nobody else to get in the way, that's what happened. And as we said before, Moses alayhi salam, whenever he was taking the people away from the oppression of Pharaoh, who was the Sith Lord back then, as he's going away from them, they come up to the sea. Now all the common folks are like, oh no, that's the end. Inna lamugrakun. We will be destroyed by this huge army. Look at them coming. And then Moses said, because of his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the mercy and the knowledge and his irresistible compelling force, he said, Kalla, don't say that. You clearly don't understand, young Padawan. Inna ma'ya rabbi sayahdeen. My Lord is truly, factually with me. He will certainly save us from this situation. Now everybody would say, there is no way out of this by logic. But the seas parted, and Moses had no doubt that something like that could happen because of his connection to the irresistible force that is over all things capable and in control, right? And so then they walked across, right? And so there were miracles done by all these prophets, and that is why we have so many people of religion who believe because of those miracles. So it's very interesting nowadays, detached from prophets, because the Prophet ﷺ was the final messenger, you see people saying, I don't know about God. This thing about God controlling everything. And these stories of these old prophets. Well, in the movie, it actually says the exact same thing. That after some crazy guy taken by the dark side, like ISIS or something, killed off all of the good people of the Jedis, then after some time people started to say, yeah, did you hear these crazy old stories about Jedis and the Force? That's all just some old stories, right? Subhanallah. But then we see in the story that people were caught by the dark side of anger, of conflict, of hate, of confusion, of negativity, right? And then some of them were brought back by miraculous means. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says time and time again, Allahu waliyyul ladhina amanu. يُخْرِجُهُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. Right? That God is the patron supporter of the believers. He takes them out of the darknesses and brings them into the light. This is the Holy Quran telling us, right? And it says, كِتَابٌ أَنزَلْنَاهُ إِلَيْكَ لِتُخْرِجَ النَّاسَ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. The Quran says in Surah Ibrahim right at the beginning, this book was revealed so that you, Muhammad ﷺ, can give an example, and that people could be removed from the darknesses and brought into the light. And so we see this beautiful points about this loving, positive hope for people no matter how bad they came. In the movie, some people became very bad in the dark side, very evil people. And yet we saw some of the people who were with the likeness of the positive usage of the force. They were saying, no, don't lose hope on them. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe you can bring him back, right? And we saw in previous episodes that even one of the worst of them finally came back towards the end. And so that's this positive hope that we see the Prophet ﷺ took in so many occasions in his life that most everybody else was hopeless. But because of his prophetic example, that hope was not lost. For that reason, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu was not only a Muslim, but perhaps the greatest political leader in the history of mankind. It was that hope that brought the #1 fighters for many years, killing and attacking Muslims and trying to wipe out Islam and the Muslims, in Khalid ibn al-Walid and Abu Sufyan, to become devout believers on the light side, leaving the darknesses of evil and corruption and a lack of purpose. Right? And so we see the examples of Ta'if, a whole city of people that could have been destroyed. But because of the Prophet ﷺ and his positive hope, when the angel came down after the people threw rocks at him and mocked him and cussed at him and spit on him, and then the angel said, like has happened with many other prophets, I can destroy these people. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I hope and I'm praying that Allah will bring from their progeny people who will worship Him and be connected to Him and see the light of guidance. And that happened. Why? Because he believed it happened, and at no point did the Prophet ﷺ become hopeless. Right? He always believed and trusted and worked when things were completely, seemingly hopeless. Where we find ourselves today with many situations of the Muslims overseas and what we're capable of doing and what maybe not doing here, there is hope. Right? And that is the Islamic character that we should have. As we see with this emergence of ISIS and others, groups and even some common folk, that you can use the force of Islam, which is divine guidance and truth, for a very evil, dark way. If your relationship with Islam or your motivation in what you're doing as a Muslim is based in aggressive arrogance, then you will have much conflict and problems with others, and it can become very problematic, and it slowly builds a negative environment with conflict, slowly but surely removing happiness from people, right? So embracing the true prophetic model is the way to completely counter that. That's why it says in the Holy Quran, قَدْ جَاءَكُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ نُورٌ وَكِتَابٌ مُبِينٌ. And surely a light has come from Allah and a clear book. And the scholars of commentary on that one, they said the light here is referring to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, right? And so trying to learn about the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and his character and his dealings and his beauty of his interactions with others, that's where we will find our solution. He embodied that, right? He was a true peace. Even through a whole life of conflict, he was a true comfort. He was the most patient, loving, compassionate, kind, gentle person we could ever imagine. That's because he was rooted in the light. That's why he was such a beautiful person. Because he knew Allahu nuru samawati wal ard, that God is the light of the heavens and the universe. We see the beauty of God's creation because of the light. His creating light lets us see all the beauty of creation and its colors and forms and shapes and sizes. And so that is the literal, physical beauty. But if we're going to see how to become part of the beauty of God, it is to know Him and His descriptions and what we call His asma and sifat. And we learn how He is. He's the loving, the merciful, the compassionate, the kind, the forgiving, the gentle, right? The guide. He is all of these things, right? And so if we embody that in ourselves and become godly people, then we will reflect that light and people will be attracted to it. And they will want to embrace it. And that is the way that many people embraced Islam. There was no battle anywhere near the borders of the land of Indonesia. There was no battle. There was no caliphate that ever existed there. But that is the largest concentration of Muslims on the earth. Over 200 million, about 85% of all of the people of Indonesia are Muslim. And the reason is not because of a political war, not because of anything, But people shined that light in their character, in their business dealings, in their attitude, and people were naturally drawn to it and embraced it. And that is what we need to do in our lives if we are to be successful. According to our scholars, my dear brothers and sisters, the spiritual battle we all find ourselves in is definitely a battle between darknesses and light. The darknesses are in anger and hatred and selfishness and worldly desire. And the light is embracing a life of compassion, of patience, of self-control, of dedication to God, His presence in our lives, and relying upon Him alone. This is very similar to the concept of the Star Wars theology. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us all and make us the people of the light. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I promise you we'll try to solve all of this in 30 minutes this week. Please forgive me for last week, inshallah. It is of the utmost importance in times like this that we trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we hold tightly to the light of the rope that He gave us, because that lightsaber is the Holy Quran. If we're going to defeat all of the influence of shaitan and all of his darknesses that he brings to the world, we have to embrace the tool by which many great Muslims achieved greatness, and the world looked at them with an eye of respect, not an eye of disdain, because of their connection to this holy book. And the connection to the holy book, what it will do, it will bring you close to Him and His characteristics, and you will realize how far you are from it and how much work that you have to do. Right? So we have to leave this evil darkness of arrogance, of selfishness, of negativity and sadness and ill will towards others, because those are ugly traits. We can only embrace the beauty of the Creator in His creation if we embrace Him who is the Creator of creation. We ask Allah, Ya Allah, guide us with your light that you revealed in the Holy Quran. Ya Allah, empower us and motivate us to look to the Prophet ﷺ and his character and his example and his miraculous life as the means by which we will live. Ya Allah, please join our hearts. Make us people who work together for positive enlightenment, working to follow the example of your prophets. Ya Allah, please make us leaders of the righteous. Please make our families people who are concerned primarily with spiritual growth and intellectual development. Ya Allah, please forgive us as a people that we have been lazy and weak and flawed. Ya Allah, please fill in our flaws with your perfection, because you are perfection and peace, and from you comes perfection and peace. Ya Allah, show us truth and guide us to it and guide us by it. Ya Allah, show us the untruth and avert us from it so that we do not follow it. Ya Allah, please remove tyranny and corruption and oppression from the Muslim world, particularly by the hands of anyone who calls himself a Muslim. Ya Allah, please give us understanding and wisdom in Scripture, understanding of our day and time and how to properly deal with the circumstances and the darknesses we face. Ya Allah, you are the Lord of the dawn. From you comes the light that breaks out of the darkness, protruding to spread goodness and morality and piety. Please make us those who understand that and live that example, and make us the people who remember your Prophet ﷺ every day of the year, trying to love him and follow him and embody him and understand him in our lives every day of the year. وَصَلِّ اللَّهُمَّ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ أَجْمَعِينَ.